Hello, everyone. Video 3. Let's keep going. You'll understand it better by and by as we go. So let's just keep going. We ended on John Casor, the first Black indentured servant in colonial Virginia, who was made to serve the duration of his life for one of the English whites who, in the colonies, who argued with a prior indentured contract English white, and he won. And this John Casor had to serve him for the duration of his life, and he was the first man to be declared a slave because slavery had been authorized and acted into law in 1641 in Massachusetts. Okay, 1656, a couple of years later, Elizabeth Key Grinstead, last name G-R-I-N like Nancy, G like girl, S like Sam, T like Tom, E-A-D like door. Elizabeth Key Grinstead, a mixed race woman who successfully gained her freedom and her sons by challenging her status as a baptized Christian, daughter of the free Englishman Thomas Key, her dad. She had an English attorney. Must be nice to have representation, huh? Who was also the father of her mixed race son. And they married each other after she was freed. She won her case. A story of success. Elizabeth Key Grinstead, and her son, his name is given here. That was 1656. However, in 1662, so I don't know, what is it? Whatever, 5 or 6 years later, whatever. Others tried the same case challenges because she was successful. So other mixed race slaves figured, well, our mixed race ought to get us our freedom. I guess that's what they figured. I would have to. But it caused the Virginia Royal Colony to approve a law adopting the principles of partus sequitur ventrum. Partus sequitur or sequitur ventrum. Partus sequiter ventren. Partus for short. So you can look up, Google or look up Partus, Partus, stating that this law stated that any children born in the colony would take the status of the mother. So, I'm saying so. A child born of an enslaved mother would be born into slavery, mixed or not, regardless if the father were a free my own handwriting. It either says were a freeman or freeborn Englishman or Christian, a white English colonist. Okay. Regardless, this reversed the common law rule in England from which the colonists came from, that the child held the father's status there. which is, I guess, why that mixed Elizabeth Ginged Dread woman won, because she was the first one to challenge it. Didn't hurt to have an attorney who was your child's father. But the other ones running behind her with that, nope. That common law rule in England was not going to be the case in America. Thus, this change institutionalized the skewed, meaning mixed up kind of, let's look up the word skewed, power relationships between those enslaved people. I'm sorry, those who enslaved people, and enslaved women, which I'm saying which because I'm still reading the law, so I have to tell you what I'm saying. I put which in parentheses. Freed white men from the legal responsibility to acknowledge or financially support their mixed race children. Freed white men from the legal responsibility to acknowledge or financially support their mixed race children. So, is that the first set of deadbeat dads where that came? Well, maybe not real. I mean, because that was illegal for them to not have to acknowledge or financially support. And somewhat confined the open scandal, wasn't a secret, of mixed race children and miscegenation, meaning the interbreeding of people considered to be of different racial types. It's called miscegenation, to within the slave quarters. Had to be kept confined within the slave quarters. Something like that's y'all problem, you know. So, I'm thinking, well, so your mixed child, your issue, I say, wow. Wow. 1672. 10 years later, King Charles II rechartered. In British English, it means to give new charter to something or to charter something again. The Royal African Company, it had been initially set up in 1660 as an English monopoly. Monopoly meaning the exclusive possession or control of the supply of or trade in a commodity or service. That's what a monopoly means. For the African slave and commodities trade to all English subjects. And the English subjects, that meant a person or thing that is being discussed, described, or dealt with. And the British English subjects, English people, they were called subjects. Let me read that one. Let's see. King Charles II rechartered the Royal African Company in 1672 that was set up in 1660 as an English monopoly. The exclusive possession or control of the supply of trade in a commodity or service for the African slave and commodities trade to all English subjects. talk about that word monopoly for a minute because we hear it in the news and different companies, mergers or lawsuits to stop them or whatever. You're getting too big of a company, blah, blah. The Monopoly board game, talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about the history of that. The standard British version has locations set in London that were selected in 1935 by Victor Watson, managing director of John Waddington Limited. And the colors are references to the locations. Let me stop right there and say, I used to play that game. When I was young girl. And I played to win. Because all I knew is it might have been play money, but I wanted as much of it as I could get, as many of those houses, the land, and I wanted that car. I don't know if it was a Rolls Royce, whatever, it was silver. I think it had a plane. And we used to fight over, who would end up with that car. I think was the top thing you could have. It could have been a Rolls Royce or something. And of course, how much money and how many buildings and land. I'm talking about, and played it all the time, played it feverishly. Got into dad blasted almost arguments over it. You cheating, you took this, you did, really? I'm just going to say it right now. Of course I didn't know, but had I known what a monopoly was, and that this rechartering gave the exclusive possession or control of the supply of or trade in the commodity of service as a monopoly for the African slave and commodities trade to all English subjects. And here, I was a little black girl just about to go berserk over trying to win that game. The board game of Monopoly. Super fun. And things of old don't matter. Things of yonder aren't ingrained in other ways or thought of. Really? Let's keep going. Let's keep learning. Obviously, I didn't know this. Because why would I be wanting to play a game like that as a black youngin'? We were buying and selling in a playful way, unknowingly, trying to get well. Really? Okay, so let's keep going here. Tourists from as far as Canada, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia have been known to visit specific locations in London because of their presence on the Monopoly board. The Monopoly game board was so popular. The London version of the game was successful. And in 1936, it was exported to continental Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, becoming the de facto, here we go with that one, meaning standard board in the British Commonwealth. And the British Commonwealth is a political association, or was, if it isn't anymore. We'll keep going. We want to make sure we have past history and current history correct here. Association of 54 member states, nearly all former territories of the British Empire. British Empire. So the game that I played, even though it ended up with another version, the US version, but it was popular. Well, it was really popular. So keep that word British Empire in thought. Monopoly. We got a little bit more time, so let's keep it going. Because remember, I said we were going to go back in time before the Atlantic slave trade. The who, what, how did we get here? Meaning here to today, to colors and racism, racist or not, or what are you, or what are you not, or who's it, what's it? Who did what to who? When, where, and why? How on earth did this happen? British Empire. The British Empire, the long 18th century, and a century is 100 years, comprised the dominions, colonies, protectorates, mandates, and other territories ruled or administered by the United Kingdom and its predecessor states. It originated with the overseas possessions and trading posts established by England between the late 16th and early 18th centuries. Now, in looking up overseas possessions and trading posts, woolen and textiles exports, sugar, tobacco, tropical groceries, and slave trade labor. Where? I was going to say, where did indentured servitude go? Well, we heard about where it went. See, now you know why we started out with what was indentured servitude, and then who had to do the first lifetime of it because they ran off. But they were considered a stranger, not necessarily a slave. And then that other guy, John Kassir, court case, folks saying breach of contract or whatever. He didn't finish his indentured servitude on my contract, so I guess this guy won lifetime servitude. Slave, first slave, John Kassir. And you can't heal from that which you don't know. You, we, us. People that want to know. Some people don't want to know. Some people don't care to know. But this is an attempt at trying to find out what on earth happened to get us here. Okay, so with a few minutes left of this video 3, at its height, this British Empire, it was the largest empire in history, and for over a century, so over 100 years, was the foremost global power. Did you guys know that? By 1913, the British Empire held sway, and it says sway, even though I'm thinking way, like we say way over. Well, it says sway over in the research sources. 412 million people, which was 23% of the world's population at the time. And by 1920, it covered, I'm going to say the numbers, 35 comma 500 comma 00. Did I say zero? 00 comma 0000 km. I guess that's kilometers. But in terms we would understand, 13 comma 700 comma and 3 zeros of square miles, which was 24% of the Earth's total land area. Now think about that now. The British Empire. So are you thinking this is just over in Britain? No, empire. We'll get into the empire aspect of things. Foremost global power. Largest empire in history. In history. I must have been studying a different history in school. Anyway. As a result, its political, legal, linguistic, and cultural legacy is widespread. Well, duh. If it was the largest empire in history, well, of course. At the peak of its power, the phrase, quote, the empire on which the sun never sets, end quote. Let's say that again. Quote, the empire on which the sun never sets, end quote, was often used to describe the British Empire because its expanse around the globe meant that the sun was always shining on at least one of its territories. Quote, the empire on which the sun never sets. So we got 6 minutes, so let's see what we can do with 5 of those. I did say this was a healing journey. I know I'm gonna need it and gonna need it. Because I did this research, now I'm doing it all over again with y'all. I'm telling you something. So, so if you want to learn more about British culture and all that, look it up for yourself. Let's get on with this aspect of it. The empire and slave trade and all that good stuff. Well, not good stuff, but that stuff. You can study the age of discovery in the 15th and 16th centuries, where Portugal and Spain pioneered European exploration of the globe. So Portugal and Spain, according to history, pioneered this exploration stuff. And in the process, established large overseas empires, Portugal and Spain. Envious, I didn't put that, say the word in the research. Envious of the great wealth these empires generated, Portugal and Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands began to establish colonies and trade networks of their own in the Americas and Asia. Envious. Envy is like jealousy. This is what I'm saying right here. That's not Christian life. Because jealousy, according to the Bible, the word is a sin. Envy is what got this going. Okay. little breath. A series of wars in the 17th and 18th centuries with the Netherlands and France left England, and then following the union between England and Scotland in 1707, Great Britain, now is Great Britain, the dominant colonial, see how that all kind of, Portugal and Spain was doing all this empire and wealth and everything and all this here. And then there was envy of that wealth. And then, wars and splits and unions and creating some territories and colonies and stuff. Great Britain, the dominant colonial power in North America. And you can study the Battle of Plassey, P like Paul, L like Lassie, A, S like Sam, E, Y like yo-yo. The Battle of Plassey in 1757. You can study that. The independence, the independence of the 13 colonies in North America, United States, in 1783, after the American War of Independence, resulted in Britain losing some of its oldest and most populous colonies. When Britain lost to America, they lost some of their oldest and most populous or populated colonies, that were created out of the envy of Portugal and Spain's wealth and territories and stuff. Let's see what we got going on time here. Oh, let's prepare for a video on that note.